Hello, I'm Kurt Bone with Advanced Diver Magazine. Today we're here with CCR explorer Keith Ambrose and KISS rebreather instructor Randall Purdy. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hey, Kurt.
So Keith, when did you first start diving in Guatemala?
Okay, so the first time that went to Guatemala was in 1987 for a wedding for a good friend of mine. He married Bill Jackson, and his wife was Jeannie Colon. Her family had some extensive ties in Guatemala. She was from Guatemala. So the wedding was at the Hotel Antigua, which was in Antigua. Um, it was interesting at that time in 1987, staying in a hotel where it was a woman who was supposedly the secretary for Oliver North, who was hiding out so she couldn't be subpoenaed to testify. And her boyfriend were living at the hotel at Titlan when I was there. So we met them. At that time, the wedding party had gotten into some vans, and we went up to this lake Atitlan, and we stayed at the hotel Atitlan. Back then in 1987, we had to get out of they were Volkswagen actually vans, so we'd have to get out of the vans to push them up the hills because they couldn't carry the weight of the people in the wedding party up the hills, up the bigger hills, which were some big hills going up through the volcanic mountains to Lake Atitlan. At the lake Atitlan, I didn't do any diving there until 2008. Actually, 2005, I went the first time with a friend of mine, Bill Adams. I said to him, I know a lake and I know where we could possibly find some artifacts. So I set it up. I knew some people through Jeannie Jackson, I went to the wedding. Her family was in Guatemala, so I was able to set up purchasing 100% oxygen and at Fabregas, and that was in the city of Guatemala City. And I shipped down a pallet of soft lime through Excess Scuba. So it was there 3 months in advance, and it never made it out of customs. So when I got down to Guatemala, I had to go to customs and get the skid out of customs. They didn't know what it was, so I had to go through some. I had to pay somebody. Actually, is
Yeah,
what happened.
had to grease some
Yeah,
palms.
yeah. And then so at that point I had a skid of soft lime there, and I had the oxygen, and so we've used that many times afterwards. So Bill Adams and I went through the lake, and again we started diving in different areas of the lake. We started finding mostly pottery artifacts. Um, Again, at one point we stayed at the hotel Iguana Perdita. The owner was building some new buildings at the time, so she kept telling me, "Yeah, it's going to be ready. It's going to be ready." But they were on Guatemala time, so they were kind of finished by the time I got there. But the rooms were brand new. They had just finished them so that we could stay there because otherwise they were.
I think I first met you in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, I met you in Dominican Republic at a CCR symposium that was put on by I think it was Shadow Divers and Ube was an instructor there. So we went to Dominican Republic and I met Kurt there. So when we were there, I was talking to Kurt and I said I know a lake because I known Kurt was doing some stuff in Mexico. I said I got a place in Guatemala. I can almost guarantee you we'll find artifacts. So in 2008, I had already been to that lake twice with Bill Adams, and I invited Kurt, and he obliged by saying, "You're up, you're the TC, and you make it happen, and I'll
That's
go."
right. I wouldn't have to
So
do
I
anything at all besides follow you around.
show up, yeah. So we ended up going there the first time, and Kurt showed up, and he brought a hound dog. His name was Eric Foreman at the time, and it was Kurt, me, and Eric, and another gentleman.
Jeff Torish.
Yeah, Jeff Torish from Maine.
Yeah.
So it was the four of us, and so I did all the logistics, got all the oxygen, and I had some soft lime already there. Uh, I'm not sure if we brought extra, but we were using the soft lime that I had brought, a few years before that. When we got there, Deedle had set up a boat for us to get in touch with, which was this captain called Domingo. He had his own boat, and it was called the Tiburon, and he was our captain and our boat for the time we were there, about a week. And he would take us to different spots. He himself is a several generation Mayan. His family had been living on the lake for many years, hundreds of years. So he knew all the people, and he also had some contacts with the museum in his town, so that we were able to donate our artifacts that we found on that first trip to this museum, which was in I forget the name of that town. Kurt, you remember the name of that town?
San Pedro.
San Pedro. San Pedro. So the artifacts were given to that to museum, and the museum curator gave us a letter saying that he was accepting the artifacts, and now everybody can go to this museum and see the artifacts that we had found on several trips. So we ended up going back to Guatemala one more time to Lake Atitlan again with Advanced Diver magazine, and we were doing video, and we were traveling to different Mayan villages around the lake, again finding artifacts and again giving them to this museum. The first trip around, we found a very nice piece of a bowl, and it was taken by a curator of another museum, and we never saw him again. He took off with it. So that was the first trip.
That and that and a round anchor, I think.
Yeah, and a round donut-shaped anchor with a hole in
Yeah,
the
the
middle.
one that Eric
Eric
found.
had, yeah. So then we got smarter, and we found this guy Domingo, and he was giving, we were able to donate it to this museum, which we could go see the articles that we were actually donating. The other guy, we don't even know what happened with him.
Yeah.
He supposedly opened up his own museum, but we've never seen it
And we
again.
went back to a different lake on the northeastern side called Lake Peten, and the following
Yeah,
year.
yeah. The following year, we went back to Lake Patenitza, which is up by Tikal, which is on closer to the Mexican border in the north. That lake, we stayed with in a hotel type of situation. We had met a woman that owned a hotel up there through Eric Foreman, because his mother is a bird watcher, and she had stayed at this hotel. So we went up there. He knew of the hotel, and we stayed on her lake. And she had a boat, so she took us around at different parts of the lake. And again, we were finding artifacts in that lake. We then went back again another time, and we started to travel around, because I was thinking there must be cenotes up there, because there's a lot of Mayan ruins. Actually, I think that the ruin in Tikal is one of the largest Mayan ruins in that whole area, and that was just south of the Yucatan, and on the Mexican border. There were some big pyramids there that the Mayans had built that had been excavated, and it was a national park now. So we went back up there, and we were looking at Kurt. I and Jennifer had gone back up there, and we were looking for cenotes. We actually hired the woman that owned the hotel. Her son was a school teacher, and he knew the area pretty well. So he came as our guide, and he got us access to cenotes we probably would have never gotten access to.
Yeah, there's
He
some.
worked,
We found
and he
some
worked
big, giant,
deep.
round, big ones up there that were 300 feet to the bottom.
Yeah, to get
Yeah,
to the water,
just to get to the water.
just to
Yeah,
get to the water, and then we had to
yeah,
dive.
they're 800 feet across and 300 feet deep. They're
Yeah,
gigantic holes.
there was one cenote I went in, was 110 feet to the water, and it was in a small village, and there was quite a few people living there, and I had gone down. I descended on rope to the water, swam around, and on my way back, Kurt hooked up a pulley, and the people that lived in the village pulled me out the 110 feet back up. I didn't have to climb. It was a pleasure. It was like an elevator coming back up. So we went to many different areas in northern Guatemala looking for cenotes, but most of the stuff was very deep. And that one that Kurt's talking about was on a lumber 22,000 acre lumber. They grew teak,
Teak
and
wood.
they were growing the teak for India, the country of India, because there was a shortage there, and these investors had put up the money to build this area where they were growing these trees, and they had 22,000 acres, and there was a big cenote there, very deep.
Two of them.
It was like two of them, yeah.
Yeah, two
so
giant
we had
ones.
gone and checked that out. We didn't dive there though. It was
too far to the bottom.
too far down.
I wasn't climbing out of that hole. Yeah, that'd be out of your mind. I didn't think we had enough rope.
No, we didn't have enough. We didn't have long enough rope to get to the bottom, to the water.
Yeah.
We had to fall 100 feet at the end.
Slide off the end. Don't put a knot on the end of that rope.
Good deal, cannonball.
So we traveled all over northern Guatemala and different areas. And one time we got pulled over by the police in agricultural police on a Friday, because they usually stop you on Friday because they're looking for a payout. And the guy told me that I'm not allowed to drive in Guatemala because I don't have a Guatemala license. My New York license was could not be used in Guatemala. So I told him I was going to call Mr. Hertz because I wanted to know why he kept renting me the truck, year after year, and he let us go.
Yeah,
he was very confused at that point.
Very confused. Well, wait a minute. How much money? We didn't even grease his palm.
No, we didn't give him anything. Yeah, he took our passports to the back of the truck, looked at them, and gave them back to us, and we left.
Yeah, I was surprised. In 2023, we returned to Lake Athlon with a new group of CCR divers, including Randall Purdy of Heartland Scuba, and he is a KISS rebreather instructor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And how did you get involved in that? I think it was under KISS with Mike Young.
Get involved with the Lake Athlon trip?
Yeah.
It was. I've been working on the Roaring River project and Cannonball project with Mike Young, and Kurt, you had invited him, and then he asked me if I wanted to tag along, and I got a hold of you, and then I tagged along. So
then you got incorporated into the madness.
Right place at right time.
Yeah.
So on that trip, we weren't doing very good at the beginning, but then you guys struck gold there almost on the last day. Tell us about what you found there.
Yeah, man, was all that in the same? It was all basically in the same dive, wasn't it?
Yeah, we weren't getting nothing for a while.
Yeah, we dropped down and kind of went around this point, and we were running a team of 3, and we were paced out like 10 feet different, going the same direction. And yeah, we found the first artifact at like 120 feet, and then we found another one at 90, and then another one at 70, and then I should have marked an altar that I didn't mark. So we found a lot of stuff on that dive.
Yeah, that was a good dive.
What was your impression about the lake? Did you was it what you thought it was going to be by the time we got there?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, that place is amazing. It's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Like, it's unreal to see that big of a lake surrounded by volcanoes. So it's pretty amazing.
And of course, Keith didn't find anything that trip, did you, Keith?
It's tough being TC and also find things.
Yeah. Well, I think I struck out too. I was a solo diver the whole time.
Yeah.
Go left.
Yeah, go left.
Randall was definitely the one who found the most.
Yeah.
Rather be lucky than good, right?
That's right.
Okay. So yeah, that was one of the many trips we went to Guatemala. Everything went smooth. We had stopped at Fabregas like I usually do, and I had asked the people that had the hotel, which is the hotel Iguana Perdita, if I could borrow some of their 80 cubic foot tanks. So we ended up taking the 80 cubic foot tanks, and we got there a day before the main party came in. Mike Young and Kurt and I went to Fabregas, and we transfilled 100% oxygen into tanks, 80 cubic foot tanks. So we were all diving side mounted 80s, one of air, which at the hotel they have a small pump, an air pump, so they could supply us with air in an 80, and then we had 100% oxygen in an 80 on each one of our rebreathers. So we were diving, all were diving rebreathers. None of us were diving open circuit. So we had arrived the day before. We filled the tanks, and then we got out to the hotel. And I went back and got the party, and Kurt and Jennifer lounged out poolside. Oh, there's no pool there, right?
Yeah.
The lakeside.
Oh, yeah.
And so I showed
I think I'm the one that had to bring all the tanks by myself to Guatemala City.
up. You did.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I remember
For that nice long 6-hour trip.
That 2.5 hour trip. Yeah.
Yeah,
The 2.5 hour. Yeah,
the two and a
normally it
half
takes
hour
2.5
slash
hours.
6 hour trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was diving a Kiss Classic rebreather, and Randall, you had a Kiss Sidewinder.
I was on a Sidewinder. Yep.
Yeah, and Keith dives what he calls the Cadillac.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
dive an AP
Yeah,
CCR. Yeah.
and he calls it the Cadillac. Why?
The Cadillac. Why? It's got all bells and the whistles.
Yeah. Yeah. After he called his a Cadillac because he's got all the bells and the whistles, I called mine the Yugo because with a Kiss Classic, you go wherever the hell you want to go.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's a funny
None of
story.
this-
Many years ago.
First time I was diving with him, I had to listen to that beeping noise for freaking hours. Hours. It's like, what the hell? Can't you turn that crap off?
You really wanted to let him know what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was telling me.
So
Take a
now, and Mike was diving the new Go, the Dive Talk Go. Is that what they're calling it?
I think that's what they're calling it. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you got one and you took it back to Mexico, didn't you?
Yeah, I've got one. I took it to Mexico and I've been diving it in our local quarries around here, building hours. So
And you're liking
it's an
it?
interesting little unit.
You liking it so far for what it is?
For what it is, yeah. The big thing with that one is you gotta realize what it actually is for, and it's not for some of the stuff that we're normally doing. It's for more easy dives, kind of like what we were doing here in Lake Adelon.
Right.
Actually, the one Mike was using was about perfect for this.
Yeah, but the only problem
Small
was
and
it was
compact, yeah.
small and
Yeah.
compact, but it has a 3-hour duration.
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
It's really crazy that you can pick a rebreather up with 2 fingers and dive it to 200 feet for 3 hours and be fine. So,
And it's
Right.
a chest mounted rebreather, right?
Yeah.
yep, yeah, it's chest mount.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we're planning on going back in 2025 in January, I hope. If Keith is going to get it'd be the TC again and make sure it all works out.
I didn't retire yet.
But no, we
yeah,
got a bunch of stuff last time. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, going in December, Guatemala is very religious, so it's a very crowded time of year. Going in January, it'll be a little bit different in the sense of getting out. It'd probably take 2.5 hours to get to the airport.
Yeah, it's only 25 minutes to the airport.
from the airport to
Yeah.
to Lake Atitlan
Yeah.
instead of getting stuck in traffic or going around. And they had there was some roads out. So
Yeah, in January, it's only 35 minutes to the airport from the lake. Not 5 hours.
yeah.
it's crazy. Going back, we drove across like a river, and there was
you
no
took the
road.
shortcut.
It was,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
took the shortcut.
No, there was no road there. We had to cross the river. Yeah.
Yeah, when we brought the tanks back over, they went that way. And I said, what are you going this way for? He says, well, it cuts 35 minutes off the trip. I said,
Yeah.
well, why didn't we go this way every time?
Because you got to drive through the river.
But the river wasn't that deep. It was only 2 feet deep.
Yeah, that's true.
You wouldn't want to gotten in that river, though. I tell you that. Like that was nasty.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah,
It is Guatemala.
That's their sewer system. Yeah.
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 Since 1987, they've cleaned up the litter. The litter used to be terrible, especially around the rivers. They used to just they would just throw their garbage all over the place. So it's come a long way since 1987, where they've you don't see as much garbage. You might have thought there was a lot more in '87.
I thought the lake was a little bit more polluted this time than the very first time I went there. Maybe I just didn't look around as much.
Probably because there was more water this time, right? The first time was the same amount of water because the lake fluctuates in depth, right?
Yeah, it came up like
rises and
15
falls.
feet.
Yeah, since the last time we were there, it
Yeah.
rose about 15 feet since the last time we were there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the temperature of the water is a little on the cooler side, right?
Yeah,
That's
well,
balmy.
it wasn't
72.
too bad.
That's nice.
I don't need to wear an Extreme Weasel Plus, though.
No, I don't. I think you could tone that down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to get with Randall and get a better undergarment because I was cooking every dive.
I was pretty sure you were going to die of heat stroke.
I was so
It
stinking
looked
hot.
bad. It looked real
Yeah.
bad.
I was wondering why you were sweating all the time underwater.
Yeah. Well, nobody would know because they'd know nobody was around me.
Right. Probably the middle to the end of January, we said, right?
Middle to the end of January 2025
Correct.
is be about the best time for me.
Right. Okay.
Not
All right, let's see what
December
happens.
at Christmas time.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you later.
Yeah, actually, the flights
Thanks,
and everything
Kurt.
are much cheaper. Thank you.
Yeah.